Hello, my name is Stephen Bedard, and I'm the director of Hope's Reason Ministries. If you've ever been to my website, stephenjbedard.com, and I hope that you have been at my website, you will notice that one of the things that I'm interested in is that of disabilities, and specifically autism. And I thought I would share a little bit about why I am interested in that and why I attempt to provide resources in that area. I never thought that I would be someone who would seek to learn more about disabilities and to promote disability resources in the church. That was sort of thrust upon me. You see, beyond being a former pastor and an apologist and a Bible college teacher, I'm also the father of 2 children with autism. Now, when my wife and I got married, we never thought that disabilities would be a part of our life. We got married and we very soon had a child, and our son was a beautiful baby. He was just absolutely incredible. He seemed very intelligent, and we were just so happy with him. Everything seemed to be going along very smoothly. In fact, I was at the doctor's office once, and I looked up on the back of the door, and it had a chart of how many words that a child should have at a certain age. And I looked at that number, and I quickly did a count in my mind of how many words he had. And I was so relieved to find that he was almost exactly where he was supposed to be at for his age. And so I had no concerns at all when it came to disabilities or autism or anything like that. However, as time, the words that he did have seemed to be falling away, and eventually he got to the point where all of those words were gone. And we did something that was very typical, I think, of parents with children with autism. We had his hearing checked to see if there was something wrong there, and it came back that his hearing was perfect. And so we went to see a developmental pediatrician, and as our son went through some tests there and was examined by the doctor, it quickly became apparent that he indeed had autism. And I'll tell you, I had no idea what that meant. When I heard autism, I thought of the movie Rain Man, and that's about all I knew about autism. So I didn't even know that I was supposed to panic at that time. But as I began to learn more about autism and what it was and what it meant, I began to realize how serious this was. Also, during that time, our son would get farther and farther from his peers. At the time that he was diagnosed, he wasn't really that far behind, but with each month and with each year, he became farther away from them in his skills and his abilities. Now, when our son was diagnosed with autism, we also had a young daughter, and the pediatrician asked if we would be willing to put her in a research study to examine siblings of children with autism. And we were willing to do that. I mean, I had no concerns that our daughter would have autism. It was enough for us to have a son with autism. I was very confident that our daughter would be fine. But she began to go to appointments as they would work with her to basically try to develop their ability to diagnose autism at an earlier age. And siblings of children with autism are more likely to have autism, so it just was convenient for them to do that. Unfortunately, it worked out maybe a year later that our daughter was diagnosed with autism as well. And I'll tell you, this was a real kick in the stomach to have our 2 children diagnosed with autism. And autism is just something that, especially when it's as severe as our children are, it just robs you of all the hopes and the dreams that you have for your children. All the things I just took for granted, that our children would end up getting their driver's license and go off to college and get married and have children, and all of those kinds of things. All of a sudden, that was completely uncertain. And I'll tell you, even now, a decade later, it certainly is very unlikely that any of those things would happen. So it really was something that caused a tremendous amount of grief. In fact, there are some things in common with finding out your child has a disability as those who have actually lost family members, because there is a real grief that goes along with that. So that was my experience as a parent, and it's an ongoing experience, of course. We have lots of challenges, but we have lots of opportunities for joy as well. There's little victories that take place all the time, and we're very proud of our children. They've developed a lot of skills, and they have come a long way, and we're extremely proud of them. Now, in addition to being a parent, I'm also a former pastor, and so during the time that we were going through all of this, I was trying to figure out what is the role of the church in ministering to both the children with autism and also the families as well. So this is something that really was on my mind. Now, I had a bit more control as the pastor, or at least more influence, and so I had a advantage there over what many parents have. But I'll tell you, it still was a challenge, and many churches just have no idea how to minister to families with disabilities in general or autism in particular. And this is one of the reasons why I wrote this little book called How to Make Your Church Autism Friendly. And it shares a lot of our story as to what happened, more detail than what I gave to you in this video, and also gives some suggestions about how churches can minister to families. And I specifically want to focus on the idea of families, because it's not just the children. Yes, it's difficult for children to have a disability, but it's also very difficult for the parents. There's all kinds of pressure on marriages at this time as they're putting all their emotional energy into their children. What is there left for each other? And so there is a place for the church to minister to couples. And what about the siblings? The siblings have to deal with so much. They don't get the energy and the emotion from their parents that the children with the disability has. They also probably end up having their belongings broken and misplaced and taken and all that kind of thing. And sometimes they even get put in a place where they have to take on additional requirements within the family, that they have to help out with the parents in ways that the average child really shouldn't have to do. So it is very difficult for siblings. So all of that kind of thing is in this book, and I hope that you will take a look at it. It's available in paperback, and it's very thin, so it won't take you long to read. And it's also available on Kindle. You can get all of that on Amazon, and you can get more information about it at my website, stephenjbedard.com. But I want you to know this isn't about making money for me. Really, this is about getting the information out to churches. I really believe that churches have an incredible opportunity to minister to families who are dealing with disabilities. Recent studies have shown in terms of autism that 1 out of 68 children have autism. Do our churches really reflect those numbers? I don't think so, not in the experience that I've had. And that's just autism. If you add to that other disabilities, the numbers are so much more. And so this book, while focused on autism, would also give you all kinds of information and some ideas on how to make your church disability friendly in general. So if you're in a place where you perhaps have a family with autism in your church, or you just want to be prepared for when it happens, I would encourage you to pick up my book, How to Make Your Church Autism Friendly. Thank you, and keep coming back to my website, because I do try to provide resources for churches and for individuals to learn more about this and to be more effective in ministry.